The support meta has finally seen a bit of a shakeup for 26.7 with nerfs to Karma and Nami, while Rel has been loving her buffs. We've got pro players absolutely spamming Anivia support recently, so it's a new pick on the block for this patch. All this and much more in today's video as we provide you guys with an update to the solo queue tier list for every role in 26.7. Now, nobody likes how every stats site just auto-generates their stats, litters them with Google ads, and then AFKs, baiting players into terrible builds via misleading stats. That's why we just launched the best build site for League of Legends that actually has our team of challenger players working with the stats to explain why you should run these builds, when to pivot, and what to avoid. It's totally free, so why not try it? Check it out after this. And of course, if you want our famously effective courses behind the builds that teach you how to actually carry games and climb fast, use our special discount link in the description below. And with that said, let's get right into today's tier list. A top lane champ who has always been more niche in the past, but who's actually started to see a lot more play in recent patches is Vayne. Top lane Vayne has a really interesting and powerful build right now that consists of rushing Hexplate into Essence Reaver 2nd and Stormrazor 3rd. As we all know, Vayne is a champion who scales really well, and with the new role quest in Season 16 providing bonus experience, it's amped her relative power quite a bit. It's similar to why we see Kayle and Ornn in such great spots right now, because they're champs that scale incredibly. Being able to take Exhaust as a secondary summoner also makes Vayne extremely oppressive in lane, because if a melee champ tries to jump in on you, you can just pop Exhaust to negate a huge chunk of their damage and then run them down afterwards. We have a complete rundown of this build up on our new build site, so definitely refer to that if you're looking to try it out. So especially with Garen being the most played top laner in meta right now, there's a ton of value to being able to pull out the top lane Vayne, and we've got her rated in the S tier for 26.7. So looking at the top lane tier list, it was a less impactful patch in regards to any meta shifts, as we will continue to rate Garen and Kayle as the OP tier champs. Singed and Ornn were both nerfed to this patch, but so far they are not performing much worse compared to last patch. Nerfs barely put a dent in their strength, so even though we don't have them up in the OP tier anymore, they remain very strong S tier champs, so absolutely zero reason to drop them for 26.7 if you've been having success on them in previous patches. Garen has absolutely skyrocketed in play over the past patch, as his play rate was already up at 10% in 26.6, and now it's way up to 14% in 26.7. So every single metric points toward Garen being a legit OP tier top laner right now, as not only is his play rate extremely elevated, but he holds a top 5 win rate in the role as well. Now, this doesn't mean Garen is completely invincible though, as he does still have a few weaker matchups with Kayle and Vayne being two that you'll want to avoid, so using your ban on one of them is a good idea. In terms of fighter priority up in the top lane for this patch though, nobody comes close to matching Garen. Moving on to jungle now, one champ who has seen a resurgence over the past few patches and moving up into the S tier for 26.7 is Naafiri. So Naafiri jungle players have been finding way more success as of recent because of a new build popping up. You used to rush Profane Hydra or Eclipse on Naafiri jungle, but after the Hubris buffs, things have changed. Hubris is now Naafiri's most popular rush item and her best performing rush item. Even though we have seen more bruisery Naafiri builds in the past, playing her as an assassin is what's working the best right now. You rush Hubris, go into Axiom Arc second, and then third item is pretty situational, with Serilda's Grudge and Edge of Night being interchangeable in that slot. So for the jungle tier list in 26.7, the only significant change we ended up making was moving Graves out of the S tier. Graves' nerf landed as expected, with the champ losing about 1% win rate, so he's still a good A tier pick, but no longer S tier worthy. The Shyvana change didn't end up boosting her overall power level by that much, so we'll have to wait for next patch to see what Riot has planned, as they stated they are looking to issue a bigger set of changes in 26.8. So for mid lane this patch, there's a new build that a lot of pros have been liking on their immobile mages, and it consists of taking Rocket Belt as a core item. Initially, we saw the build first become a lot more popular on Aurora, and now it's made its way onto other champs like Ahri, Orianna, Lissandra, Zoe, Azir, and Mel. Chovy has been playing Rocket Belt a ton on his mages, and the idea behind the item is that it provides that gap close for you, which really helps when playing into comps that are more dive heavy. That extra mobility you get from the Rocket Belt dash can be so helpful in skirmishes to dodge away from the enemy's engage, and just allows for these immobile mages to survive a lot better. Second item is where you'd be looking to pick it up on most of these immobile mages, as you'd still want your mana item as a rush. You definitely don't want to build Rocket Belt in every game though, and only when you really think you'll benefit from the active dash. Relative to something like Shadow Flame, you'll be losing out on a bunch of damage, so if you're playing into a comp where you don't think you'll need the dash to survive, then just going for the higher damage route is better. Overall, Rocket Belt has been performing really well in solo queue though, so it's clear that it's powerful when picked up in the correct spots. So looking at the mid lane tier list for 26.7, it's going to continue to be Ahri and Xerath locking down the OP tier. After her recent changes, Lissandra is a mid lane pick who's on the verge of being an OP tier pick. She's seen almost a 2% spike in win rate due to the changes, and slots in extremely well for solo queue, where we see a fair share of melee champs picked in meta. If you can use Lissandra as a counter to stuff like Yasuo, Zed, Katarina, Akali, and Fizz, then you're going to have a really good time right now. Those assassin mids are generally really annoying to play into for most mages, but Liss is one of the few who actually shuts them down really hard with her point-and-click CC, so she's well worth picking up right now. Veigar and Cassio were the only two mid laners adjusted for this patch, and the changes landed as to how we expected. Veigar didn't lose that much power, but enough to where he drops from S into A, and then the Cassiopeia changes were impactful enough to where she is no longer a weaker B tier pick, as she's up in A for 26.7. So 26.7 was one of the lighter patches we've seen for ADC this season, as Kalista was the only champion change. So far, it's not looking like the buffs have led to a significant boost in strength for Kalista, so she will continue to be placed in the C tier as an ADC you really just want to avoid for solo queue. Veigar barely ended up losing any power at all from his nerf as a bot lane carry, so there's no reason for us to drop him out of the S tier as he continues to overperform. Ashe has a new build going around on her for this patch that many pros are taking on her in solo queue, and it revolves around a Hex Optics rush. It makes a lot of sense for Ashe because she easily benefits from the 10% damage amp that Hex Optics provides, as you need to be over 500 units away from opponents to gain that amp, and since Ashe's auto range is 600, she can easily stay outside of that 500 threshold a lot of the time. The 100 bonus range on takedowns is also really powerful for skirmishes, as getting the 700 range and then also being able to apply the slow on your autos adds for some really nice kiting ability. The crazy thing about Ashe builds right now is that you can honestly run 4 different items and see great success. Kraken, Yuntal, Hex Optics, and Stormrazor are all viable on Ashe, and each are slightly better in specific spots, which we have outlined on our stats page for Ashe. There's a new support that has seen a big spike in popularity over the past patch, and it's Anivia. So many pros have been picking up Anivia's support in solo queue, and the idea behind the pick makes a ton of sense. Anivia synergizes insanely well with 2 items being Solstice Slay and Bandle Pipes. Both Solstice Slay and Bandle Pipes passives proc whenever you slow or immobile a target. Since Anivia can very easily proc both passives by simply throwing down her R, you get so much value out of both items in skirmishes. Bandle Pipes especially is just so broken on Anivia because during a team fight, you will be able to provide your team with perma 20% bonus attack speed. So where the pick makes the most sense to play is in games where your team locks a heavy fighter comp. And this actually happens quite often because the most played champs in top and jungle right now are primarily fighters. So if you've got a fighter top and jungle while your ADC will also be auto attacking a ton, then you've got 3 champs benefiting from Bandle Pipe's attack speed in fights, which is massive. Here's a look at the complete setup for Anivia support as you are rushing Rod of Ages into Bandle Pipes for the core while taking Electrocute for the Keystone Rune. So for Anivia's tier list placement, we're going to be placing her in the B tier as an average pick that can work well if you pull it out in the correct spots that we outlined. So we will look at the support tier list. For the first time in a long time, we no longer have Nami up in the OP tier. In reality though, the champ is barely any weaker than she was in 26.6. The nerf was extremely light, so we still have her placed in the S tier as one of the better enchanters for solo queue. Melio and Sona are a small cut above now though in terms of enchanter strength. Karma was also very minimally impacted by her nerf, so we're actually going to be moving her back into the S tier for mid patch as the nerf didn't even hit hard enough to warrant a drop into A. Rel was one of the biggest winners of the entire patch as a result of her buffs. You could argue for Rel being the best melee support in the game right now, as she's right up there with Braum and Thresh in terms of relative power for solo queue. Rel is an especially strong pick if your ADC wants to play Kai'Sa, Samira, or Miss Fortune, so don't sleep on Rel in 26.7. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit skillcapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it everyone, that's a complete look at the solo queue tier list for every role as we reach the midway point of 26.7. Thank you all so much for watching, we'll see you in the next one.